Hello. Looks like I'm live. I hope everybody's doing well. I wanted to hop on a live. It's been a while since I did this. I think it was like top of the year this year, and I thought that it would be a really good time just kind of midway through the year to hop on, and we have so many new faces joining us in this little corner of the internet, and yeah, I thought I would. Hi Francesca. Hello. Welcome. Yeah, I thought I would do something a little bit different today, which is do like a bit of an introduction and share a little bit more about my story and about how Hum kind of came to be and what we're all about. And it might be a little bit longer, so feel free to stay, feel free to leave if you need to. But the intention here is really to have something on my Instagram so that people can kind of check it out whenever they want to and feel like it and have time. So hello to everyone joining. Thanks for being here. So yeah, a little bit about me and who I am. I'm Erin. I am calling in from going live from my apartment in Mexico City. But I'm originally from outside of Chicago, so I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. How I got to Mexico City is a story for another time, but I have a long history of living in this beautiful country that I now, for over a decade now have called home. But originally from outside of Chicago. I am one of 4 siblings. I'm a middle child, so if anyone here knows what that's like, I'm number 2 in our wolf pack, and we grew up in a tremendous amount of chaos and unpredictability. It's something that in some ways, in a lot of ways, it infuses my work, and I talk a little bit about my circumstances growing up on my Instagram in so many ways, as well as in my newsletter. But in a lot of ways, I'm still learning how to really articulate what that experience was like. And it wasn't really until I started my healing journey years ago that I really became aware of how challenging it really was when I started healing my CPTSD and things like that. So really challenging environment growing up, and at the same time I'm also strikingly aware of the privileges that I have, just by nature of the way that I present, the way that I look, the color of my skin, the socioeconomic background that I came from, and so very much so aware of that. And I think it's really important to name, especially as a coach and a space holder. There are particular privileges that I've experienced that make my experience just vastly different from the experiences of other people and people that I hold space for. And at the same time, I have experienced a depth of suffering that allows me to hold space for my clients in their depths as well. And so very important to be, for me, that I'm aware of the privileges that I have, and at the same time to honor and and speak truth to the level of suffering that I have experienced, which makes me able to show up for the clients that I have the opportunity to meet in those places as well. So both can very much so be true, and important to name both. So due to, the nature of the environment that I grew up in, I like to say that love and relationship are really my greatest karmic teachers in this lifetime. I had a pretty twisted idea of what love meant, what it looked like, what it felt like, what it was supposed to be like. And that led me down the path of abusive and toxic relationships in my early 20s and late teens. And those relationships, I was already really disconnected from myself and from, really who I was because of the environment that I grew up in. And those relationships, furthered that disconnect tremendously. So by the time I was in my late 20s, I really had no idea who I really was, and I didn't even know that I didn't know who I really was. And so when I was in my late 20s, I actually experienced a natural disaster trauma, and it was an earthquake, a really, really strong magnitude earthquake that my system, in looking back and in healing that, really registered as a life-threatening experience. And it really felt like, it's kind of metaphoric looking back at it, but it really felt like the tiny foundation that I had at that point that was already really shaky, really rocky, really just kind of like being held together by a string, was completely rocked, like just completely rocked by that event. And I didn't even know that about natural disaster trauma at the time. I didn't know that it was a thing. Another one of my privileges, potentially. But I had, after that event, tons and tons of trauma responses that started to come out, and most of them were actually relational. And this is something that women experience. They can experience like a shock trauma or some sort of other type of trauma that isn't relational, but the way that those responses to that event might show up are largely relational. And so I started experiencing all of these, relational challenges and just really difficult, challenging periods. I had a period of really, really acute relationship OCD that came on after that event, and I honestly thought I was in a psychosis. I had absolutely no idea what was happening to me. I had never heard of ROCD before, and that's just an example, just one example of the many, trauma responses that started to bubble up. But essentially, it was a gift, because that event that just completely shook me to my core and rocked any like semblance of a foundation that I had led me to somatic healing. And, I had been in therapy throughout my life. It was definitely not new to me by any means. But somatic healing, really the biggest kind of shift that I experienced early on with this kind of work as a client was in the relationship between the coach or the practitioner or the mentor and the client. And, you know, these relationships, like, were the first relationships in this kind of setting that I actually felt truly seen and validated and held and mirrored in a way that I hadn't experienced before. And I literally felt my system start to settle with those relationships. And, you know, this is by no means anything new. Somatic healing and these types of coach and client relationships where the coach or the mentor or the practitioner shares some of their own life experiences to make you feel less alone, and really is bringing the humanity back into healing, is how I experienced it. It's by no means new, right? This is part of a style of healing and a style of coach and client relationship that has existed for you know, there's a lineage of this type of relationship. But it was definitely new to me. It was something that I had never experienced before. And it made a tremendous impact on, I think, the possibility and the potential that I felt for my own healing. And so, yeah, I think, you know, these early relationships that I had were the ones that made me kind of realize that I actually could change my life, that it was possible. And so eventually, you know, I did a ton of, you know, somatic trauma resolution and healing a lot of the trauma from my early life, and kind of formulating a deeper understanding of, like, how that really shaped who I was, not as who I am, but who I was in the way that I was showing up in my trauma responses all the time, and how disconnected I really was from myself and my experience. And eventually, you know, clearing a lot of that trauma really led me to be able to see myself clearly for the first time, is how it felt. And this is what, you know, kind of opened the doorway and opened me to more of my authentic self and my authentic expression, and led me onto the path of wanting to become a somatic coach and to really work in this space and to help others, you know, see that possibility for themselves and within themselves as well. So, yeah, I decided to go down the path of studying, and to be honest, I had always seen myself in the helping profession. So that's important to name as well. So that this wasn't necessarily random or news to me, but it was something that finally felt possible, and I finally found a world in which I felt like I could fit in this space. I didn't feel called to become a therapist because of the challenging kind of relationships that I had had with therapists in the past, and some of the personal experiences I had had that really really kind of relationally changed how I saw therapists and experienced them. And again, it was just through these relationships with my early coaches and my early teachers that made me feel like I could really see myself in that space, in this capacity. So somatics was where it was at for me on a healing perspective, and from like a coach, client, practitioner, client perspective. I was like, this has the potential to be really healing, and it just changed my life. So I decided to, as an umbrella, go down the path of studying somatics, studying the nervous system, studying, embodiment, how we can come back into our bodies, and how powerful that can be and how transformational that can be. And the Hum was born. Hum coaching was born right then and there. So my specializations are in somatic attachment therapy and female nervous system healing. And somatic attachment therapy is really a very broad, it's expansive framework for looking at something really simple, which is how, first and foremost, how we relate to ourselves, how we learned to relate to ourselves, what our attachment strategy or style is when we relate to ourselves, and what those patterns are, and how that is mirrored in the way that we relate to everything and everyone else that we are in relationship with. And, we look a lot at your, our early history and our relationship with our caregivers, what was modeled to us, intergenerational trauma, and all sorts of things that the body is still carrying and expressing through certain patterns in the way that we relate. So that's somatic attachment therapy. But again, it can sound really, intense and big, but the way that clients experience it is really simple and really beautiful. Coming back into the body, back into relationship with who we are, forming a secure relationship, first and foremost with ourselves, is so life-changing. And it really allows you to then see the way that ripples out into, how you relate to everything and everyone in your life, and how those relationships can change for the better once you establish that security within as well. And then my other specialization is in female nervous system healing. And this is a path that I was called down because my vision is to primarily help people who birth and people who parent, helping them first and foremost become secure within themselves so that they are passing that on to their children. And that starts in the nervous system. And so female nervous system healing is a really beautiful space that is unfortunately kind of on the forefront. It's like cutting edge in a lot of ways, which is, again, really unfortunate. Because so much of the nervous system education that we see in mainstream, areas are, that education is primarily based on the male physiology. And so what female nervous system healing is looking at is how the female physiology is actually very different and unique in the way that it expresses. We are cyclical beings, and so in kind of embodying our cycle and honoring the cyclicality of our nature, again, we kind of take the power back into our own hands and start to experience our cycles, all of life's initiations, and the different things that we experience as women, especially from the perspective of women with the different hormonal makeup that we have, and things like that. It really changes the way that we relate. Again, it's about relationship. So those are the two areas of expertise that I work within, and what they do is, they really blend very beautifully into just this general opportunity to examine and kind of re-meet yourself, and learning how you can honor yourself deeply, and support yourself, and come into a deeper level of empowerment and embodiment, and honestly a deeper level of transformation than what previously you might have thought possible. So yeah. So that's a little bit about the specific buckets under somatics that I work within. It's really fun. It's extremely expansive, and it's pretty infinite, honestly. And in the way that we can explore our experience within those frameworks. So a little bit about Hum Coaching, which is the entity that is my coaching practice. The way that I see Hum is that it's honestly way bigger than me. I'm a coach. I am the face of the practice, but I really see Hum as a bigger entity than myself, and I see it as just a tiny piece in the infinite energetic web that is made up of all other incredible practitioners and space holders and coaches and activists and artists and creatives and consciousness shifters and healers and all of the other humans that are doing their little part to make the world just a little bit better. I was in a group earlier this month, and somebody brought in the idea, and it isn't by any means coined by them, but they reminded me of the idea that individual empowerment leads to collective liberation, and that is essentially the idea that I think keeps Hum going. It's the idea that keeps me going within Hum, and I think that is ultimately the idea that many other practitioners and space holders and coaches and artists and creatives and all of those people, I think that is an idea that we share. So yeah, that is just a little piece of my story, and I've never done this before. I've never shared this vulnerably, this explicitly, this cohesively, kind of in one sitting, and so it honestly feels good to be able to do so, and to be able to share a little bit about the work that I'm doing here, my offerings, and where they come from, really, what inspired them, what inspired me to kind of walk this path. So other places that you can find me, I have a Substack. I am not a writer, but I write to process, and I had a different email platform that I grew over the past year, and I decided in August I took a break from my email list and writing my newsletters, and just to integrate some things that I went through in early summer, and I decided at that time to migrate to Substack. And the reason being is because the previous platform that I was on didn't allow for a ton of connection with my readers, and I really crave that. That's really important to me. So Substack does allow for that. When you join my Substack, you receive a free resource that I created. It's an e-course for learning the language of your body. It's really simple. and has an integration exercise in it and things like that to kind of get you started on that journey. So the link is in my bio if you're interested. And on my Substack, I share some really fun anecdotes about my life. I have some really fun and interesting articles coming out over the next couple months. And just sharing a little bit more about my story, certain things that I've been through and experienced, and weaving in how we can process those kinds of things because, from a somatic lens, because these things are universal. These experiences by no means are ones that are individual to me, and I'm very aware of that, which I think is, definitely part of my mission with my Substack is to create some resonance and a feeling of like you're so not alone in what you're experiencing or what you're going through. So other than that, I have a one-on-one container that I absolutely adore and invest right now the most of my energy and time into with my clients. So the link to schedule that is also in my bio. And I'm looking forward to having more offerings in the future. I am in the process of incubating like a group program that I really want to come out with in early 2025. Group and communal healing has been a huge part of my personal healing journey. It's something that I would like to continue to provide as a space holder and a practitioner, but I want to do so in a way that feels really aligned for me and really, really, really of value to the people who join. So stay tuned for that. What else? And please connect. Please feel free to DM me. I know that Instagram can be like really weird, and I will just say it here. I absolutely love the community on Instagram. I love receiving DMs from people. I love when people choose to reply or share about their experiences, and especially if something that I post resonates with them, and things like that. So this space that I've been cultivating and creating on Instagram for as long as I have, it really is a space that ultimately is meant for connection, but I think it can be a little bit intimidating, and so I love to hear from people on Instagram and to connect in that way. So I welcome that. So that'll be it from me for today. I hope to come back live and do something like this again. It wouldn't be necessarily an introduction, but I've done meditations and short somatic practices and little chats in the past, and so I plan to show up a little bit more in this space in the near future. So thank you so much for being here, especially for people who popped in and have stayed, and if you're watching this after the fact, thank you so much for listening as far as you have. I know that it's been a bit of a ramble and a big share and a lot of information, but I hope that it's helpful. I hope that it serves as a way of just kind of like getting to know the human behind Hum, and also, what our intentions are and what we're really up to here. So thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody has a beautiful rest of their day or week, wherever you are in the world, and much love. I have to figure out how to end this now. Thanks, everyone.